Maybe Mother's right. Maybe you're just not ambitious enough for this family.
Funny. You weren't saying that on the nights you thought I didn't know about Damon.
The mashed potatoes were still warm when my wife told me to get out. Darren, just leave. Right now. Kiera's voice cut through the dining room like a blade through butter. Her mother, Helena, sat beside her, nodding with that satisfied smirk I'd grown to hate over the past 5 years. I set down my fork and looked around the table. Our Thanksgiving dinner had turned into my personal execution. Helena had been taking shots at me all evening. My job as a finance manager wasn't prestigious enough, my clothes weren't expensive enough, my car wasn't new enough. The usual routine. But this time, Kiera didn't defend me. She joined in. Maybe Mother's right, Kiera had said, her voice cold as November wind. Maybe you're not ambitious enough for this family. That's when I made my mistake. I laughed. Ambitious? Like your friend Damon? The guy who texts you at midnight about urgent marketing strategies? The silence that followed was deafening. Helena's fork clinked against her plate. Kiera's face went pale, then flushed red. How dare you, she whispered. How dare you embarrass me like this? I'm not the one who should be embarrassed here, I said, standing up slowly. But you're right about one thing. I should go. I walked to the closet, grabbed my coat, and headed for the door. Behind me, I could hear Helena's voice rising in triumph. Finally! That man never deserved you, sweetheart. You're better off without him. As I stepped into the cold Chicago evening, I pulled out my phone and sent a single text to Pierce Eldro, my buddy who owned the auto shop downtown. It's time. See, here's what Kiera and her precious mother didn't know. I'd been planning this moment for 3 months, ever since I discovered that Kiera's late nights at the agency weren't actually at the agency at all. The beauty of being a finance manager is that you understand paper trails, you know how to track expenses, follow receipts, and notice when someone's spending patterns don't match their stated activities. When your wife claims she's working late, but her credit card shows charges at the Riverside Hotel, you start paying attention. I'd been collecting evidence like a man possessed. Hotel receipts that matched Damon Firth's business travel. Venmo transfers from Kiera to Damon for shared client dinners that happened to occur on nights when I was out of town. Text messages I'd photographed when she left her phone unlocked. GPS data from our shared phone plan showing her car parked at his apartment complex. The apartment I'd already rented was furnished and waiting. The moving company would arrive tomorrow morning at 9 sharp. Kiera would be at her spin class, just like every Friday. My name was already removed from the lease, the utilities, everything. I'd spent weeks preparing for this moment. I drove through the empty streets, past the houses glowing with warm Thanksgiving light, and smiled for the first time in months. Kiera wanted me gone. Fine. But she was about to learn that getting what you want isn't always what you expect. My phone buzzed with a text from her. Darren, come back. We need to talk. I deleted it without responding. Tomorrow, she'd find an empty apartment and a manila envelope on the kitchen counter labeled, "While I was away." Inside would be copies of every receipt, every photo, every piece of evidence I'd gathered about her affair with Damon. Let's see how she likes surprises. Friday morning came with the sound of moving trucks and the sweet taste of revenge. I sat in my car across the street from our apartment building, watching the crew load boxes into their truck. Pierce sat beside me, drinking coffee from a thermos and shaking his head. You sure about this, Darren? This seems pretty harsh. Harsh? I laughed. Pierce, my wife has been sleeping with her business partner for 6 months. She chose her mother over me at Thanksgiving dinner. She told me to leave. I'm just following instructions. The movers worked efficiently. Everything that belonged to me was gone within 2 hours. The apartment that Kiera and I had shared for 3 years now looked like a stranger lived there, which, I suppose, was accurate. I'd left behind the manila envelope, along with my key and a note. As requested, I'm out. Thought you might want to see what I've been up to while you were working late. D. Pierce started the engine. Where to now? Your rental property on Maple Street. Then we wait. The apartment Pierce had found for me was perfect. Small, clean, and most importantly, mine. No shared lease, no joint accounts, no Helena dropping by unannounced to criticize my life choices. I unpacked my essentials and settled in to watch the show. Kiera's first call came at 11:47 a.m. I let it go to voicemail. Darren, what the heck? Where are all your things? Call me back right now. The second call came 20 minutes later. This one I answered. Hello, Kiera. What did you do? The apartment looks like it was robbed. I moved out, like you asked. I didn't mean... She paused, and I could hear her breathing hard. Come home. We need to talk about this. I am home. This is my home now. You made it clear yesterday that your mother's house is where you belong. Don't be ridiculous. You can't just leave like this. Watch me. I hung up and turned off my phone. Let her stew for a while. But the real fun was just beginning. That afternoon, I drove to Damon's neighborhood, the fancy part of town where he lived with his wife Mara and their twin daughters. His black Audi sat in the driveway, gleaming in the autumn sun. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I parked 3 blocks away and walked back, carrying a small bag of supplies. The beauty of suburban neighborhoods is that everyone's at work during the day. No witnesses, no complications. The spray paint went on smooth and even. Cheater, in bright red letters across his driver's side door. The valve stem tool I'd borrowed from Pierce made quick work of all 4 tires. And the piece de resistance, a bag of fish heads from the market, carefully placed in his trunk through the slightly open window. I was back in my car within 10 minutes. As I drove away, I called the local news tip line from a burner phone. You might want to check out 1247 Oakwood Drive. Looks like someone's husband found out about an affair. That evening, I sat in my new apartment eating Chinese takeout and watching the news. Sure enough, there was Damon's vandalized car on Channel 7, with a reporter discussing domestic disputes in upscale neighborhoods. They blurred out the license plate, but anyone who knew Damon would recognize that car. My phone, which I'd finally turned back on, showed 17 missed calls from Kiera and 4 from unknown numbers. I ignored them all and went to bed early. Tomorrow would bring phase 2 of my plan, and Kiera had no idea what was coming. Monday morning brought chaos to Kiera's world, and I had a front row seat. I'd positioned myself at the coffee shop across from her agency building, laptop open, pretending to work while I watched the drama unfold. At 8:15 a.m. sharp, I sent the email that would change everything. The recipient was Ms. Voss, the head of human resources at Crawford and Associates. The subject line read, "Workplace Ethics Concern, Confidential." The email was professional, anonymous, and devastating. I'd included copies of hotel receipts showing Kiera and Damon's business meetings at the Riverside Hotel, screenshots of their Venmo transactions, and photos I'd taken of them entering the hotel together. Everything was perfectly legal. I'd gathered it all through legitimate means. At 8:47 a.m., I watched through the coffee shop window as Ms. Voss emerged from the elevator and walked directly to Kiera's office. Even from across the street, I could see the tension in her body language. My phone rang. It was Tessa, Kiera's gossipy friend from the agency. "Darren? Oh my God, you need to know what's happening here." I put on my most innocent voice. "What's wrong, Tessa?" "Kiera and Damon are in HR right now. Someone sent evidence about their affair to Ms. Voss. There are photos, receipts, everything. The whole office is talking about it." "That's terrible," I said, trying not to smile. "How did someone get that information?" "Nobody knows. But Darren, this could ruin Kiera's career. The agency has strict policies about workplace relationships. especially between partners. Well, I said carefully, maybe she should have thought about that before she started the affair. There was a long pause. You know? Tessa, I've known for months. Why do you think I moved out? Oh no. Oh no, oh no, oh no. Kiera is going to lose her mind when she finds out you know. She already lost her mind. At Thanksgiving dinner, remember? After I hung up, I walked across the street and entered the agency building. The lobby was buzzing with whispered conversations and nervous energy. I took the elevator to the 7th floor and found exactly what I expected: chaos. Kiera stood outside the conference room, her face pale and her hands shaking. Damon paced nearby, running his fingers through his hair and looking like he wanted to punch something. Ms. Voss emerged from the conference room with a stack of papers and a grim expression. Ms. Holloway, Mr. Firth, please step inside. That's when Kiera saw me. Her eyes went wide with a mixture of rage and terror. What are you doing here? I came to return your spare office key, I said, pulling the key from my pocket and holding it out. Figured you might need it, considering the circumstances. You did this, she whispered. You sent those photos to HR. I have no idea what you're talking about, I said innocently. But I did want to thank you for making Thanksgiving so memorable. Really opened my eyes to a lot of things. Damon stepped forward, his face red with anger. Listen, you little… Mr. Firth, Ms. Voss interrupted sharply. Inside, now. As they disappeared into the conference room, I handed the key to the receptionist and left the building. Phase 2 was complete, but I wasn't done yet. That afternoon, I paid a visit to Big Tony's auto shop, where Pierce worked part-time. Tony was exactly what you'd expect from a guy named Big Tony, 6'4", 300 pounds, and loyal to his friends. So let me get this straight, Tony said, wiping grease off his hands. Your wife's been cheating on you with some rich boy, and now you want to mess with his head a little? Something like that. I'm in. What's the plan? That evening, we put the plan into action. Damon lived in a gated community, but the gates were more for show than security. Tony's tow truck gave us the perfect cover. We looked like we belonged there. We found Damon's house easily enough. The Audi had been replaced by a rental car, but his wife's Mercedes was in the driveway. Perfect. While Tony kept watch, I slipped into the backyard. Their pool was covered for winter, but the pool equipment shed was unlocked. Inside, I found exactly what I was looking for: pool chemicals. 20 minutes later, the Firth family pool was a lovely shade of bright green, thanks to a generous helping of copper sulfate. The chemical was harmless, but would take weeks and hundreds of dollars to fix. As we drove away, Tony chuckled. Think his wife will notice? Oh, she'll notice, and she'll wonder why someone would target their house specifically. Might even start asking questions about why her husband's car was vandalized. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. We need to talk. Damon. I showed it to Tony, who laughed. Looks like pretty boy wants a conversation. Then let's give him one, but on my terms, not his. I texted back. Pierce's Auto Shop, Maple Street, tomorrow, 7 p.m. Come alone. It was time for a face-to-face conversation with the man who'd been sleeping with my wife. And I had a feeling Damon wasn't going to like what I had to say. Damon arrived at Pierce's Auto Shop at exactly 7 o'clock, driving his rental car and looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. I watched from the office window as he parked and sat in his car for a full minute, probably working up the courage to come inside. Pierce and Tony flanked me as Damon finally entered the shop. The fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across his face, and I could see the stress of the past few days had taken its toll. His usually perfect hair was disheveled, and his expensive suit looked wrinkled. Darren, he said, trying to sound confident, we need to end this nonsense. What nonsense? I asked, stepping out from behind the counter. You mean the nonsense where you've been sleeping with my wife? Or the nonsense where you both thought I was too stupid to figure it out? Look, What happened between Kiera and me? What happened, I interrupted, is that you decided to pursue a married woman and she decided to cheat on her husband. Don't try to pretty it up with euphemisms. Damon glanced nervously at Pierce and Tony, who were pretending to work on a car while obviously listening to every word. Fine, yes, Kiera and I have been involved, but that doesn't give you the right to sabotage my career and my marriage. I laughed, a sound with no humor in it. Your marriage? Damon, you sabotaged your own marriage the moment you started texting my wife at midnight. You sabotaged your own career when you decided to use company expense accounts for your little hotel rendezvous. You can't prove that. Actually, I can. Expense report from September 15th. Dinner for two at Romano's, charged to the Henderson account. Except the Henderson meeting was canceled that day. I know because I called to verify. Funny thing about being married to someone for 5 years, you learn their work schedule pretty well. Damon's face went pale. You've been investigating us? I've been paying attention. There's a difference. He took a step forward, and I could see anger replacing his nervousness. You think you're so clever, don't you? Well, here's something you didn't consider. Kiera doesn't love you anymore. She hasn't for a long time. Even if you destroy what we have, she's not coming back to you. You're absolutely right, I said, which clearly wasn't the response he expected. I don't want her back. I want her to understand what consequences feel like. What's that supposed to mean? Instead of answering, I walked over to the hydraulic lift where an old sedan was suspended about 4 feet off the ground. I pressed the button, and the car began to lower slowly. You know what I learned in my investigation, Damon? You're not nearly as smart as you think you are. You left a paper trail a blind accountant could follow. Hotel receipts, restaurant charges, even parking tickets from outside Kiera's apartment building. The car continued its descent. Damon was watching it nervously. But the really interesting thing was the insurance claim you filed last month. Remember that? The one where you claimed someone keyed your car outside the office? What about it? Well, according to the security footage I requested from the building management, public information, by the way, your car was never in that parking lot that day. But you know where it was? The Riverside Hotel parking garage. Same time Kiera's car was there. The hydraulic lift made a sudden loud noise, and the car dropped the final 6 inches with a bang. Damon jumped backward, stumbling slightly. Insurance fraud is a felony, Damon. Filing false claims, providing false documentation, that's serious business. You're bluffing. Am I? I pulled out my phone and showed him a photo I'd taken of the insurance paperwork he'd left in Kiera's car. I've already sent copies to your insurance company and the State Fraud Investigation Unit. They'll probably want to talk to you soon. For the first time since he'd arrived, Damon looked genuinely scared. You can't do this. I have a family, a career. So did I, until you and my wife decided to destroy it. He lunged forward then, probably intending to grab my phone or maybe take a swing at me. But anger makes people clumsy, and Damon had clearly never been in a real fight in his life. I sidestepped easily and gave him a hard shove. He stumbled backward, tripped over a tool cart, and landed hard on the concrete floor. Pierce and Tony moved forward, not to help him up, but to make sure he didn't try anything else stupid. Here's how this is going to work, I said, standing over him. You're going to stay away from my wife. You're going to transfer to another department, or better yet, find another job entirely, and you're going to hope that insurance investigation doesn't turn up anything else interesting. And if I don't? Then I release the rest of the evidence I've collected. The photos of you two at the hotel, the recordings of your phone calls. Yes, I have those too. The financial records showing how you've been padding your expense accounts for months. I leaned down closer. I'm not the pushover you thought I was, Damon. I'm the guy who's been 3 steps ahead of you this entire time. And if you think what's happened so far is bad, just imagine what I can do when I really put my mind to it. He struggled to his feet, his expensive suit now dirty and torn. This isn't over. Yes, it is. You just don't know it yet. After he left, Pierce handed me a beer and shook his head. That boy's going to be trouble. No, I said, taking a long drink. He's going to be careful. Men like Damon are only dangerous when they think they have the upper hand. Now he knows he doesn't. But even as I said it, I knew this was far from over. Damon would go back to Kiera, and they'd try to figure out how to fight back. Which was fine by me. I was just getting started. The next morning brought news that exceeded even my expectations. I was having coffee at my kitchen table when Tessa called, practically hyperventilating with gossip. Darren, you're not going to believe what happened. Damon's wife filed for divorce yesterday. She hired Patricia Kellerman. You know, the lawyer who handled the Morrison case, the one who takes no prisoners. I nearly choked on my coffee. Really? What brought that on? Apparently someone sent her copies of hotel receipts and photos of Damon with Kiera. Anonymous package, delivered to her office yesterday afternoon. I hadn't sent anything to Damon's wife, but I had a pretty good idea who did. That's interesting timing. It gets better. Ms. Voss called an emergency meeting this morning. Both Kiera and Damon are suspended pending a full investigation. The agency is talking about dissolving their partnership entirely. Wow, that's really something. Darren, I have to ask, did you know this was going to happen? Tessa, I'm just a finance manager who got tired of being lied to. I don't control what other people do with information once it's out there. After I hung up, I sat back and considered the situation. Someone, probably Mara Firth herself, had decided to take action after seeing the vandalism and the pool incident. Smart woman. She'd put the pieces together faster than I'd expected. My phone buzzed with a text from Kiera. We need to talk. Meet me at Romano's at noon. Romano's. The same restaurant where she and Damon had their business dinners. The irony was too perfect to pass up. I arrived early and chose a table in the back corner where we could have some privacy. Kiera walked in at exactly noon, wearing dark sunglasses and a black coat that made her look like she was attending a funeral. In a way, I supposed she was. You look terrible, I said as she sat down. Thanks. You look different. She studied my face. You look happy. I am happy. For the first time in months, actually. She removed her sunglasses, and I could see she'd been crying. Darren, this has gone too far. Damon's marriage is over. Our careers are ruined. When does it stop? It stops when you face the consequences of your choices. My choices? What about your choices? You could have talked to me. We could have worked things out. I laughed, and several other diners turned to look. Worked things out? Kiera, you told me to get out at Thanksgiving dinner, in front of your mother, after months of lying to my face about where you were spending your nights. I was confused. I made mistakes. You made choices. There's a difference. I leaned forward. Tell me something. When did you decide I wasn't good enough for you anymore? Was it gradual, or was there a specific moment? She was quiet for a long time. You stopped trying. You got comfortable. You acted like our marriage was just maintenance. And Damon made you feel special. Yes, he made me feel like I was worth pursuing. Even though he was married too. That's different. How? She couldn't answer that, which told me everything I needed to know. Here's what's going to happen, I said. You're going to sign the divorce papers when they arrive. You're not going to contest the asset division, which, by the way, heavily favors me, since I can prove you used marital funds for your affair, and you're going to stay away from me. What if I don't? Then I release the recordings. Her face went white. What recordings? The ones I made of your phone conversations with Damon. Amazing what you can pick up when someone leaves their phone connected to the car's Bluetooth system. Very enlightening conversations about your future plans, your opinion of your husband, and some rather unflattering things you said about your mother. You recorded my private conversations? I recorded conversations that took place in my car, using my phone plan, While you were lying to me about where you were going and who you were seeing. Perfectly legal in Illinois, by the way. She stood up abruptly. I don't know who you are anymore. I'm the same person I always was. You just never bothered to pay attention. As she walked away, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Peace. Not satisfaction, not revenge, just peace. The marriage was over. Had been over for a long time. And now we could both stop pretending otherwise. But apparently, Damon wasn't ready to accept defeat. That evening, as I was leaving my apartment to meet Pierce for dinner, I found him waiting by my car. We need to talk, he said. I thought we covered everything yesterday. Yesterday was before my wife served me with divorce papers, before I got suspended from my job, before my entire life fell apart. Sounds like a personal problem. He stepped closer, and I could smell alcohol on his breath. You think you're so smart. But I know things about you too. I know about the money you've been moving around, the accounts you opened. Kiera told me everything. What money? The marital assets you've been hiding, the trust fund you set up. That's illegal, you know, concealing assets during divorce proceedings. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. Damon, every account I opened is in my name only, funded with money I earned before the marriage or kept separate throughout the marriage. Every transaction is documented and legal. Did Kiera forget to mention that I'm a finance manager? That I actually understand how money works? You're lying. Call my lawyer if you want. Better yet, call yours. Oh wait, you probably can't afford one anymore, can you? Suspended without pay, divorce proceedings, legal fees piling up. That's gotta hurt. He swung at me then, a clumsy, drunken punch that I saw coming from a mile away. I stepped aside and let his momentum carry him into the side of my car. He bounced off and stumbled backward. Feel better? I asked. This isn't over. Yes, it is. You just haven't figured that out yet. As I drove away, leaving him standing in the parking lot, I realized that my plan had worked better than I'd ever imagined. I'd wanted to hurt them both, to make them face consequences for their actions. Mission accomplished. But the real test was yet to come. Because tomorrow, I was going to do something that would end this once and for all. The Crawford & Associates annual client showcase was the kind of event Kiera lived for. An evening where the agency displayed its best work to current and potential clients, complete with open bar, catered food, and plenty of opportunities for networking and self-promotion. Under normal circumstances, I would never have attended. But these weren't normal circumstances. I arrived at the downtown hotel ballroom at 7:30, wearing my best suit and carrying a briefcase that contained everything I needed for the evening's entertainment. The event was already in full swing, about 200 people milling around displays of advertising campaigns, sipping wine, and engaging in the kind of small talk that passes for conversation in professional settings. Kiera stood near the back of the room with a small group of colleagues, trying to look confident despite everything that had happened. Damon was nowhere to be seen, which made sense given his suspension. Ms. Voss stood near the entrance, greeting clients with forced smiles. I made my way through the crowd, stopping occasionally to chat with people I recognized from previous agency events. Everyone was polite, but I could see the curiosity in their eyes. Word had gotten around about the separation, and people were wondering why I was here. At 8 o'clock, the agency's senior partner, Mr. Crawford himself, took the microphone to begin his presentation about the company's achievements over the past year. I waited until he finished, then approached the small stage area. "Excuse me," I said, loud enough for people nearby to hear. "Could I have everyone's attention for just a moment?" The conversations gradually died down as people turned to look at me. Crawford frowned and stepped toward the microphone. "Sir, this is a private event." "I know. My wife works here. Or worked here, I should say. I just wanted to share something with everyone before I left." I could see Kiera pushing through the crowd toward me, her face a mask of panic and rage. Ms. Voss was moving in my direction as well, probably trying to figure out how to handle the situation, without causing a scene. "My name is Darren Halloway," I said, my voice carrying clearly across the room. "Some of you might know me as Kiera's husband. Former husband, I should say." "Darren, don't," Kiera called out, but she was still 20 feet away. "I wanted to thank Crawford and Associates for providing such a educational experience over the past few months. You see, I learned a lot about workplace ethics, professional boundaries, and the creative ways people can use company expense accounts." I opened my briefcase and pulled out a stack of papers. "For instance, did you know that 2 of your employees charged over $3,000 in personal expenses to client accounts? Hotel rooms, dinners, even weekend getaways, all billed as business expenses." The room was completely silent now. Crawford grabbed the microphone back. "Security, please escort this man." "Oh, there's no need for security," I said. "I'm almost finished. I just thought your clients might be interested to know how their money was being spent." I began distributing copies of the expense reports I'd compiled, along with the corresponding hotel receipts and credit card statements. People took them automatically, the way you take a flyer on the street, then began reading with growing interest. "Darren, stop this right now." Kiera had finally reached me, her face flushed with anger and embarrassment. "Why?" "You told me to get out, remember?" "Well, I'm getting out, but I thought I should clean up a few loose ends first." I turned back to the crowd, many of whom were now examining the papers I'd handed out. The really interesting part is the pattern. Every time Mr. Damon Firth traveled for business, Ms. Kiera Halloway somehow ended up in the same city, at the same hotel, on the same nights. What are the odds? Someone in the crowd laughed nervously. Others were whispering to each other, pointing at specific items on the expense reports. Of course, that would just be an interesting coincidence if it weren't for the photos. I pulled out the final item from my briefcase, an envelope containing the pictures I'd taken of Kiera and Damon at various hotels and restaurants. I didn't distribute these. I just held them up so everyone could see they existed. "But I'm not here to embarrass anyone," I continued. "I'm here to return something that belongs to the agency." I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out Kiera's spare office key, the one I'd claimed to return days earlier but had actually kept. "This is Kiera's office key. She gave it to me when we were married, back when she trusted me. Back when I trusted her." I set the key on a nearby table. "I won't be needing it anymore." That's when Damon appeared. He must have been in the hotel bar because he stumbled into the ballroom with the unsteady gait of someone who'd been drinking heavily. When he saw me standing in front of the crowd, his face contorted with rage. "You son of a—" he started, then launched himself toward me. But alcohol and anger make for poor coordination. As he charged forward, I simply stepped aside. His momentum carried him directly into the display table behind me, which collapsed under his weight in a spectacular crash of poster boards, wine glasses, and catered appetizers. The crowd gasped and stepped back as Damon struggled to get up, covered in spinach dip and broken glass. Hotel security appeared as if from nowhere, moving quickly to contain the situation. "Gentlemen, let's take this outside," one of the security guards said, taking Damon by the arm. "No need," I said, closing my briefcase. "I was just leaving." As the security team escorted a protesting Damon toward the exit, I turned to address the crowd one final time. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your attention. I hope you have a wonderful evening, and I hope you'll keep tonight's revelations in mind when you're deciding which agency to trust with your business." I walked toward the exit, passing Kiera, who stood frozen in the middle of the room like a deer in headlights. The crowd parted to let me through, and I could hear the buzz of excited conversation starting up behind me. Just before I reached the door, I heard a familiar voice call my name. I turned to see Helena, Kiera's mother, pushing through the crowd toward me. "You!" she shouted, pointing an accusatory finger in my direction. "How dare you humiliate my daughter like this?" "Helena," I said calmly, "your daughter humiliated herself. I just made sure everyone knew about it. You're a vindictive small man who never deserved her. You're absolutely right about one thing, I replied. I never deserved to be lied to, cheated on, and thrown out like garbage. But that's over now. I turned to leave, but Helena wasn't finished. You think you've won something here? You think this makes you the better person? I paused at the door and looked back at the scene. Kiera standing alone in the middle of the room, surrounded by whispers and stares. Damon being escorted out by security. Helena's face red with indignation, and 200 potential clients who now knew exactly what kind of people they'd been trusting with their business. No, Helena, I said. I don't think I'm the better person. I think I'm the person who finally stopped being a victim. And with that, I walked out into the Chicago night, leaving behind the wreckage of my marriage and the satisfaction of a job well done. The last thing I heard as the hotel doors closed behind me was the sound of Helena's voice, still shouting, still trying to control a situation that had already spiraled far beyond her reach. Funny how some people never learn when to stop talking.